this administration has just been hammering all of these things, and people in Hollywood are petrified. What are you going to speak out against race and sex and all of that stuff? People are afraid to have those conversations because, first of all, you never win with a liberal.
Yeah.
You're just never going to win. I'm just so liberal that I'm conservative at this point. Do you know what I mean?
What an interesting perspective. Probably best known as Adriana from The Sopranos, the Emmy-winning actress, Drea de Matteo, now speaking out with Donald Trump Jr. on a recent episode of his Triggered podcast. She told Don Jr. that many prominent celebrities like herself are against Biden's agenda, but perhaps too afraid to speak out about it.
And joining us to talk about her life, her career, a really cool new project we're going to get to in just a moment here, actress Drea de Matteo. Drea, good to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. What an interesting podcast. You obviously sat there. Good to see you with Don Jr. You got out your thoughts, which many may be surprised to think. One of the comments you said, I'm so liberal, I'm conservative. What did you mean by that?
I mean, listen, I would always consider myself far left, although I was always somewhat not part of the establishment. I never voted in my life until I voted for Joe Biden, believe it or not. Don't hate me, guys, but I'm at least one of the people who can recognize where they went to sleep or where they messed up. I mean, I am accountable for my actions. And I think that a lot of people in my industry feel the same way I feel. We're classic liberals. We believe in freedom of all kinds. And I feel like the whole liberal Democrat Party has been hijacked. Look, I mean, I know the history of the party, and I do know that they were responsible for a lot of, not so great things. But at the same time, I feel more aligned right now with a lot of conservative values, maybe not socially, but I don't think the social issues are the issue right now. I think that they are more global. I think we need to focus on that. People get very swept up in these social divisions and polycrises and all of that, and it's just keeping us from what's really going on behind the curtain.
Yeah, that's so. I think it's something that people can agree with, right? When they're tuning in and they're listening to what you say, but you might not always find that with Hollywood celebrities. Quite frankly, they live much different lives than you'd find, your average everyday American who's just trying to work hard to put food on the table. And there is such a disconnect between folks who never have to worry about their safety because they've got private security, or folks who don't have to worry about their next paycheck because they're getting paid millions by the movie industry here. But you think there are other celebrities in Hollywood who might feel the same way? Why would they be so hesitant to publicly say that?
I lost everything. So once I was out there, I said, well, this is where there's nothing left for me to do. I'm not going to lose anything else as far as my career goes. They can lose everything. I mean, you just look at the shareholders, follow the money, and recognize who's paying, signing your final paycheck. I'm operating outside of the whole industry at this point. I was never a part of Hollywood, really. So I've always been very anonymous, though, so I enjoyed my anonymity. No one really knew anything about me other than my roles that I've played. But, so many twists and turns over the last 3 years, I couldn't unsee what I was learning. You leave an actor at home for 3 years and don't let them work, they're going to become the FBI, which is the Female Bureau of Investigations. And I just feel like what I saw and what I learned, you can't go back after that, I feel like.
Drea, one of the big talking points right now, you talk about females, it's women's sports or women's protections, which we've talked about earlier here. They're facing this time where biological men are allowed to compete in women's sports, biological men are allowed in the female locker room, changing areas, etc., to where now many women are having to push back legally against this administration for changing these Title IX laws, Title IX rules that protect women, protecting them from biological men in women's spaces. And this has been something that has been controversial even for liberals to talk about. Bill Maher coming out against that. He's a known liberal as well. Others talking about that. I'm curious to know, as a woman yourself, do you have feelings on that?
Well, I have kids, so, I have a 16-year-old daughter who won't even get undressed in front of another girl. let alone knowing that there might be men in a locker room or sports. I know that Sage Steele, really caught a lot of heat for just stating the biological facts. When we were in the middle of a time where, you had all these people screaming, follow the science. Well, we are following the science, right? We have two sexes. This is the way it's still going to be this way when you're filling out forms and you're, dealing with your IDs and all of that stuff. So we can't just pick and choose when we want to pick and choose. However, that all being said, I have so many gay friends. My daughter had a trans friend. Like to each his own. Like that's my libertarian heart too. But when it comes to little kids, I have a hard time with trying to change anybody. I don't think it's a one size fits all for everybody. I also don't really believe that this administration really cares about these kids the way they pretend they do. I think that there have been so many pawns in this they've been using so many social issues as pawns to just tear us apart. I don't think we need a government to tell us we're okay if we have different sexual preferences. I think we need our neighbors and our friends and our family to be okay. But when it's all government regulated stuff, it just starts to feel like intense overreach.
Yeah.
I feel like let's just be honest. Let's just be honest about everything, the truth. Let's not have a war on the truth.
Yeah.
Let's just be who we are and accept each other. That's how I feel.
Well,
all these years.
Sure. The role of the government is really to protect the American citizens, right? And we've seen instances where, whether it's the open border, you've got folks coming in, you don't know exactly you don't know where they're coming from, you don't know what their intentions might be, or you've got these sort of liberal attorneys, district attorneys who refuse to prosecute repeat offenders. So now you've got tax-paying citizens feeling unsafe in their communities. I mean, is that sort of what you're looking for when it comes to holding government officials accountable, what you'd like to see from them instead of maybe getting involved in some of these other minor issues?
I mean, look, I think that my dream government might not exist. There's always going to be some sort of, there's always going to be politics involved. However, I think that this particular administration, through all of the technology that's been born over the last, 20 years, I think we're in a place now where a lot of the agendas that have been, being worked on are able to come to fruition. I think they attack the social issues to divide the American people more and more. And now we're seeing people protesting, and I think there's not even enough, not enough even education. I think that a lot of kids are not actually researching what the possibilities might be. Say, if a kid can't get, I know a lot of parents can't see their child's records, their medical records after 12. My girlfriend had that problem. She tried to get her son's records for some school thing, said, sorry, we have to speak to your son. No, my kid can't drive. My kid can't drink yet. They're babies. So I don't believe that anything gets to be decided by the state or the government. Unless the parents are really bad people, and that can be proven. But this agenda, to me, has just been nothing but a distraction and another way to divide people.
Well, you're not alone in that. Again, politics aside, doesn't matter if you're on the left or you're on the right. Even polling is showing that whatever this administration is doing or where they're moving, and it seems hyper left, it's not aligning with the American people when you have 67% saying that this country is headed in the wrong direction. Polling is moving away from this specific administration. So I'll close it with this, if we can, with you, Drea. We're a few months out, but you are clearly have a little bit of disdain for this administration. I'm curious, have you made up your mind? Are you voting for President Biden for another 4 terms, or are you considering former President Donald Trump in November?
For me right now, it's going to be between Trump and Kennedy. I feel like they have the same ultimate goals. I think it's about, as Trump would say, I think it's Trump who says it, draining the swamp, I think that the global agenda is our biggest issue and the biggest hurdle, and that's going to take many years to unravel because it's been formulated for quite a long time now.
Well, it's something you're working on to keep you occupied in that time. I mean, you're right. November's coming, and people can have their voices heard then, but there's so much going on to keep track of. Talk to us about your new passion, streetwear clothing brand, Ultrafree, how people can learn more about it and why you're deciding now to launch this clothing line.
Oh, that's my baby right there.
Oh, she's beautiful.
You know, we kind of have a sense of humor about it all. I know people, we've been called many things like white supremacists now and like extremists. They're calling us extremists when we're the voice of balance at the moment, because there's a cross, because there's a gun. But, you know, no one cared about Guns N' Roses, Sex Pistols, the Sopranos logos, or crosses when Madonna wore them. We joke around that this is armor for the apocalypse. It's just kind of cheeky and a good time, but it does promote freedom. I mean, look, we even have MK Ultrafree on here, and you know, we're super hippies, so we have like a take on the Grateful Dead bear, but you know, also at the same time, protect yourself, man, because I mean, what I've seen in the last 3 years with, you know, overreach the way it's been, I don't have, you know, you have to have faith in other things other than your government, faith in your neighbor, faith in yourself, faith in God. So the clothing line sort of speaks to that. It'll probably move away from that once the elections are over. But at this time, we're all about uniting both sides, you know, red and blue, and making it all about me and you. And it's not a political issue, what's happening in the world right now. These are humanitarian issues, I feel like. So we all have to kind of come together and stop fighting.
All right, Ultrafree, that's the name of the brand. Drea, thanks so much for coming on today. Just a fascinating conversation, unique perspective as always. Appreciate your time.